So excited to talk to you all about this season. So what's it been like for you watching this back? Because obviously now we're into COVID and everything like that. So, it's probably a lot to relive.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was going to be so hard to see some of that stuff again, and I had a lot of the people, because I usually am pretty active on social media during the episode, and I had a lot of people say, wow, that is really hard to see, because I don't know, we've been living the COVID thing, and you forgot how it felt in the very beginning, right? So,
Yeah.
and it was very weird to see us in the beginning of the season not wearing masks or having to think about it, and we were traveling, and it seems like a whole nother life, right?
Right. I was just going to say, it was like a lifetime ago, and it just probably will never be like that ever again, which is so crazy. Well, hopefully it will. But
I don't know. I can't imagine the transition back, right? But
I know. I hope
hope
so too. I mean, we see you at the beginning of quarantine, and you told Kody not to come to the house. I mean, how difficult of a decision was that for you as, not only as a wife, but as a mother, and, a lot.
Yeah, that was really hard. In fact, it still kind of makes me emotional, because it's like you just buck up and do what's needed, right? And I felt like that was a small sacrifice compared to what a lot of people, especially healthcare workers and stuff, were doing. Mm-hmm. But it was just one of those logical choices. And so it's very easy for me to put on that real clinical thought process and be like, okay, this is the best thing. And then there is a little bit of the emotion that leaks out, because of course it's a very hard decision. So
yeah, I mean, what was the longest that the two of you went without seeing each other then?
I think it was about 5 weeks or so. So, and then we kind of, you'll see in the upcoming episodes, it becomes a thing we have to navigate for the rest of this, the rest of the summer and everything. So, but yeah, that was Kody and I have always had a lot of conversation as the main part of our relationship. So we were still very, in touch, and I talk to him more than I probably talk to him when he comes here every day, because we're just only at the phone, right? So we actually had some really great conversations, and the kids weren't interrupting us and all that stuff. So it was really kind of nice in some regards, you know what I mean? But yes, that was really hard, hard.
That's so true. I felt like in the beginning, everybody was on Zoom chats with everybody. I'm I haven't talked to these people in so long, but now you're you're seeing them all the time. But yes, you do. You have more of those conversations, because, you realize maybe you take them for granted, seeing each other all the time. Yeah. I mean, how did your decision affect the rest of the sister wives too? Or did it not?
No, I think it did. I know Robin in particular was really I don't think this is a good idea. She kept, she would call me and text me. She's like, I don't think this is a good idea. We got to figure something else out. But we all had such different things going on in our household that it was hard to find some way to make that happen. So everybody was really concerned. I think Robin was concerned for Kody and I's relationship and for the kids. And she was worried it wouldn't be healthy. And Christine was pretty supportive. She did what she could. And Mary and I have, we do speak often, during the week. So everybody was pretty supportive. I knew that they weren't really for it in the beginning. They're like, no, this can't happen. But, it had to happen, right? It had to.
Yeah. I mean, I know that I think your son brought up that maybe everybody should have been quarantined together. I mean, was that ever a discussion, or do you think that everybody would have been ripping each other's hair out at the end of that?
Yeah. I don't know if we would have had, maybe if we had been able to get built out on the property, but even then I still had these boys who had jobs, right? And were working, and so there would have been still really tough hurdles, and I'm not sure we could have navigated. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I don't know, because I'll tell you, after 4 or 5 weeks here home with my kids, and then my son, Hunter, graduated and was home for the summer, I was I sounded like I was their mom again. You guys stop fighting, stop wrestling all over my furniture. We were going crazy in just our little house, So.
No, I think everybody can, agree with that. Everybody was going a little bit crazy. I know you said that you and Kody had these long conversations, but when you go 4 or 5 weeks without seeing your husband, I mean, how do you keep the romance alive during that time too?
I think we have a very deep relationship. We've been married a long time, and I actually love him more than I did even when we first were married. So it's kind of deepened over the years. So so that part just sort of worked out for us anyway, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? But yeah, it was really wonderful to have him physically back come into the house. In fact, I think you'll see it pretty soon. I couldn't stop giggling almost when he came home. I'm like, oh my heck, Janelle, you're 50, but whatever, you know what I mean?
So you would say like this didn't really test your relationship at all? Because obviously it tested a lot of people's relationships who
Yeah.
were in.
You know, it's so interesting because I'm pretty independent. And what I have realized is I'm okay to be by myself, but there's this part of me that I don't realize I'm kind of moping.
Mhm.
And it's like, I sort of kind of just go, like, life is sort of lackluster. And then when he's back, I'm like, oh, okay, life is normal again. Life is good. Like, I realize that there's a big part of the emotional happiness equation that he brings for me. And so I'm fine by myself, but it's much better when he's around for sure.
Totally, yes.
And I didn't even realize that it was as strong as it was, but this actually gave me a chance to see that. So
Great. That's great. You know, we see it in the upcoming episode that polygamy is decriminalized in Utah, which I know was a big monumental thing for all of you. I mean, what was your reaction when that happened? And I know it was hard for you not to all get together to celebrate.
Yeah. I know we were planning this big party with our friends in Utah who were really spearheading the legislation. And I mean, it's like almost unreal that this thing that we've worked for 10 years is finally here. You know, I mean, just, it's such a huge, I can't even tell you, like, it's just this huge weight that all of a sudden it's no longer something that they can, you know, there's still the social stigma, but they can't do anything now. They can't put us in jail or something, or other families like us that still are in Utah.
Right. Did it make you want to move back?
You know what? I actually don't. Most of my family has moved away, most of my immediate family. And there's not a whole lot for me in Utah anymore. Like, I love to go back and visit. It's all shiny and big and fancy. But I really do prefer the small, more rural life that we have here.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, have you started building your homes then in Flagstaff? I mean, you know, obviously, you know, I'm sure COVID probably put a delay on a lot of things. So, I mean, I think a lot of people probably would love to know what the status of that is.
Yeah. So I've actually chosen 3 or 4 house plans. And okay, so first of all, it's very hard to get a builder here because everybody is building like crazy. And we haven't really done anything on the land yet. It's so interesting. I think we thought we were going to come here and just build, and like it's like a raw land. So it's like I thought we're going to come, we're going to have this whole homestead, we're going to build our houses. But the reality of that, putting in the infrastructure and everything, has been definitely more of a challenge. So we have definitely made some progress as far as figuring out who's going to go where, and that will be revealed, you know, in the future. But no building yet. No building yet.
Can you say if everybody's happy where they have decided to be?
I think so. I think so. There was quite a bit of discussion about it. Our first time out discussing that was a complete disaster. We all had this gigantic blowout, but this time was better.
That's good. That's good. You know, I spoke to Kody recently, and he said, you know, since you moved to Flagstaff, obviously, like we said, this was shot a while ago, that he felt like everybody was living their separate lives because everybody is, you know, scattered all over the place, and, you know, and with quarantine and things like that. I mean, did you feel that as well?
You know, it's been interesting because the things that I took for granted, I've had to actually work for. So I actually have to call people, where I would just run into them because I was backing out and I was on my way to the grocery store and they were coming in, and so we'd stop and chat. Like, I have to actually make those things happen now. So I just sometimes will call Mary and say, hey, I'm thinking of you, or she'll call me, or I'll text, or I'll say to Christine, hey, you know, it's like I've had to really actually be mindful to not let too many days go by without talking to everybody.
Right.
So.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like you have to put in that extra effort that you didn't have.
Yes.
Before. Yeah.
So the stuff that would just happen sort of accidentally when we were in the cul-de-sac in Las Vegas, I've had to actually be mindful and put effort into. So that's been actually, I think, a good exercise for me as far as the long-term relationships.
Right. Do you feel
I can't get too lazy about that stuff.
Right. I mean, do you feel like do you feel like all the sister wives have been, you know, kind of pulling their weight and doing that as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah. Like Christine doesn't really like to chat that much. She gets kind of she gets restless in long conversations, but she's been doing her part. Like she
Yeah.
calls me and we talk and like, yeah, no, I think it's actually been good for us on that aspect. Like
Okay.
it wasn't just like we waited for something to happen that we would all talk. Like we've actually had to make efforts. So
Did it get challenging at times for you all though? Like did you feel like the weight that like, okay, we're really kind of drifting apart here, and like who was the one that kind of maybe tried to put the glue back together?
Yeah, you'll see us get into the season more, and I decided that I wanted something a little bit different as far as our communication goes. So you'll see that unfold as the season goes on.
Definitely.
So.
How do you deal with jealousy issues with other wives, or do you not get jealous anymore, or is that even a thing?
I mean, of course I still get jealous, but I learned a long time ago, you really just have to figure out how to be okay with yourself, like to realize that you have things and you have strengths and you have blessings and you have things, opportunities that you're given, and you can't compare. I mean, I think if I'm sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, she, whatever, blah, blah. I just think the comparison is like the death of plural marriage. So I had to really learn. And I remember kind of the transition and thought, I was always pretty independent, but I became like, okay, look, I'm okay. I have a lot to offer. Right. And so that really helped me through those kinds of emotions.
Definitely. Can you tell me who is the most jealous wife?
I don't know. I definitely know we all just take our turns. Listen, we're not perfect. We have our own things that trip us up for sure. You know what I mean? But I think we've come a million miles in the 30 years or whatever that we've been a family.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure you guys have figured out how to navigate, and you know what is going to push people's buttons and what is.
Yeah. And then I also know when it's just time for me to go to put myself to bed because I'm getting too tired and too dramatic and I just need to excuse myself for the day and we'll pick it back up tomorrow. So I've learned those things too, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, what have been some of those blow ups that you guys have had recently, or that were maybe that you can tease this season? Because obviously, when you said everybody went to go look at the land, that was a big to do. But is there anything else that kind of boils up over the course of the season?
I don't think, for me at least, there's not really a whole lot. When we started towards the end of the season, when I start trying to kind of change my communication and stuff with my sister wives, there's some, not blow ups, but just some, I don't know how to explain it really. It'll be just, you'll see, we had to really navigate a few misunderstandings for sure.
Definitely. Obviously a big storyline so far this season is Kody's relationship with Mary. And I think the upcoming episode, he pretty much says that he quit dating Mary and that he stopped calling her, during this time. I mean, were you shocked to hear that? And did he confide in the relationship with you, or did Mary confide in the relationship with you?
Kody does very good job of keeping things very separate. He doesn't talk about the other wives with me. And if he did, I wouldn't really want to, because I wouldn't want to hear it. And I just think that's dangerous for my relationship, because I need to have a separate relationship. And so I know they have struggled for a long time, and it really kind of hurts when I see them not good, because it sort of spills over into their families, because it doesn't feel like everything's completely calm, completely whole. So, I'm always trying to advocate and go to bat for both of them. And it's a hard thing, I think, really, for the whole family.
Yeah. So
when one relationship struggles, they all struggle.
Yeah. So were you kind of unaware of the depth of their problems?
I don't know if I was completely detailed, I didn't have all the details. Yeah. And that's the hard thing about when we are so public with our lives. A lot of these details that I would never be privy to, I'm now privy to. So, but no, I mean, I know that they've had some deep troubles, but I don't go asking I don't go asking. I don't say, hey, Mary, so what's wrong? Or Kody,
Yeah.
what's wrong? I just think sometimes they're entitled to their privacy.
Sure.
And unfortunately, there's not quite that level when you're public, you know?
Right.
So.
So you guys don't call each other and be like, oh, Kody did this to really make me mad today.
Oh, no, sometimes I call and I'm saying, I don't like your husband today. You know, I'll say that to Christine or something, like, because it's like, you know what I mean? But it's not usually a dish system. Because I think, you know, you have to be really careful because you can circle the drain. You can get really toxic. And I think I try to be really careful to not feed that because it's not a healthy head place, you know. We went to visit the Dargers in Utah, and one of Joe's wives made the comment, your head is a bad neighborhood. It's like you get in your head, and maybe that happens in other relationships too. You get in your head and you start imagining conversations, you start imagining things that are happening that aren't really happening. And that's just really, it's not a good place. It's not a good neighborhood.
Definitely not a good neighborhood. I mean, you said like when one marriage struggles, they all struggle. So when these problems were going on with Kody and Mary, how was your marriage struggling?
Do you know, I think it's just that I feel the ripples. Kody and I are fine. And I've been really happy that we have weathered even the separation. I didn't really know how it was going to be. Yeah. But, you know, I just feel, because I can always feel that there's that angst. So Kody's kind of always carrying this little bit of a heavy burden. And I don't ever know exactly what it is, but I can always just feel that he's kind of got that on his shoulders. And so it does sort of brings a little bit of a heaviness when he's here.
Right. You know, in a teaser, they said that they do not communicate. I mean, do you think a separation would do them well, or, you know, in your opinion, what is the status of their relationship?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I can't really comment on that.
Right. Yeah. Are you rooting for them though to work things out?
Yes. Yes, of course. Like, we've been together for so many years, and I just cannot imagine after 3 decades of, you know, I don't want to change any piece of our lives and our family. Because what do you do after 30 years? That's like my whole life. That's longer than I was single, you know? So.
Right. You know, and it was interesting when I talked to Kody, and he said, you know, he would never file for divorce, but if you or any of the other wives wanted to leave, they could. I mean, in the back of your mind, I mean, if you ever thought about divorcing Kody, you are divorcing the entire sister wives too. So I'm sure that's a lot of a big factor in what goes into what you think. Yeah.
Yes. That's the hard thing. Like, so I have all these children that aren't really, they're like my bonus children, you know, I mean, they're not my biological children, but they're my children. And it's like, you know, I wouldn't have technically any legal right to see them or to have access to them. And I mean, of course, I don't think it would go down like that with our family. I think we would all be very friendly and amiable and all that. But like, there's multiple layers of relationships. It's not like I'm just going to leave Kody. I'm going to be leaving Robin and Christine and Mary and all the kids. And I just can't even fathom that.
Definitely. Is Mary in a good place now?
You know, I don't know how she and Kody really are, because again, I don't really talk to them about that, but Mary and I have really great conversations. We've done a lot of work on our relationship, and there's always work to do, right, in relationships, but we are really kind of hitting a place where it's very cordial, it's very fun. And so she's in a really good place when I talk to her, because it's usually about light, easy stuff.
Good. I mean, you know, last question about this, but I'm sure it is sad to kind of watch it week after week and watch their kind of relationship unfold and unravel a little bit. You know, it is, as a viewer, and I can't imagine as somebody that is in this family and has known them for so many years, that it's got to be hard for you to watch as well.
It is hard. I will admit that sometimes when those scenes, in fact, especially these last few scenes, I've made it a point to take my bathroom break or something, or go get a snack when that's airing, because I usually can handle most of it, but that one's been really rough for me. So I sort of zone out when they're talking, because I feel like I'm being intrusive or something. I don't know. So.
Right. I'm sure. Do you ever wonder what it would be like to be in a monogamous relationship, or is this what you've always wanted and all you've kind of ever known, really?
Yeah. Well, I was married before, briefly. Yeah. And, you know, I actually like this. Sometimes if Kody's here for too many days, I'm kind of like, oh my word, you're a lot of work. Like I've just over the decades that we've been married, I've just kind of gotten used to having my independence and my autonomy.
Mhm.
And, you know, bless his heart, like he's just a guy. I mean, he's just like, I don't know, but I really like it. I really like it. It was such a beneficial thing when my kids were little and I worked
Mhm.
and I had, you know, we just worked together as a family. I think it benefited the kids having a village that raised them essentially. And it worked for me and my personality.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Do your kids want to explore a polygamous relationship as well? Have they expressed that to you at all?
None of my children have
Mhm.
really, have really said, I don't think so. Do you know what I mean? Maddie, my daughter, she's my oldest daughter. She says, I love my family and I love how I grew up and I wouldn't change it, but they're not interested
Yeah,
at all in polygamy. So
definitely. Do you think that, would you want Robin and Kody to have another baby? Do you think that door is closed?
I always love babies. We have another grandbaby coming very, very soon. And I've already
Mhm.
put my name on the calendar for my week to like go and help McKelty after the baby. So Christine will be there and then Tony's mom will be there. And so I'm penciled in for that next week. So I have that whole week blocked off to go love on that little baby. So I just keep hoping the grandkids keep coming. And of course I love babies. So if they wanted to have another one, I wouldn't be opposed. That is really a very personal decision for them.
Of course it is. And what would you say is probably one of the biggest, I know that this is kind of a loaded question, but what would you say is probably one of the biggest misconceptions about polygamy?
I think a lot of people, I get this all the time and it
Yeah, I'm
makes me
sure.
crazy. You deserve your own man. I'm like, why? Like I deserve my own, like my husband. I like that. I love my life. Why do you think I'm settling? Why do you think I'm doing less than I deserve? Like I chose this, I want this.
Mhm.
So that is the one thing. You need to leave your husband and you deserve your own man. I'm like, no, I don't want my own man. I'm
Yeah.
happy. I like my family. I like all the relationships in my family.
Definitely. And some other misconceptions I'd like you to kind of debunk for us. I mean, a lot of people think that like all polygamists are alike, but that's not necessarily true. I mean, we saw that when you went to go visit, your friends in Utah as well. So kind of break that down for me.
Yeah, so there is a vast difference. There's like a lot of differences in families and how they structure.
Hmm.
And one really astute woman I know said, a lot of it depends on personality and resources of the family. So certain wives can live together. Certain wives want certain things. Sometimes they all work together. Sometimes they choose to work together. Sometimes they have to live separately. And sometimes family resources can't allow that or can allow that. So there's so many ways that they structure. So some live separate houses. Some live in separate states. I've always wondered about that, but there are families that are like that.
Hmm.
And some, it's really vast,
Hmm.
the way that the differences in structure and culture.
Yeah. I mean, misconception that men are in it to have, multiple powers, multiple partners and power.
Yeah.
Is that, I mean, do you see that in other marriages sometimes? Obviously it's not in yours, but do you see that in other marriages?
Yeah. Do you know the ones I see, most of the men they shoulder a lot of responsibility.
Hmm.
Like our family, the family that we went and visited in Utah, I know Joe Darger's, I know he shoulders a lot of responsibility. He's like Kody.
Hmm.
And so what they don't realize is the welfare and the financial well-being is on these men's shoulders as well, at least in the families that I know. So there's a lot on their plate. So it's, and, think about having multiple women making demands on you and nagging you and everything. So there's a big piece of growth, emotional growth and selflessness that comes along with having multiple wives.
Yeah, definitely. And lastly, is there a queen wife and a basement wife?
That makes me crazy. When she said that, I'm like, because no, not at least not the families I know and not in our families. Like, there's never been a hierarchy, you know what I mean? And so maybe it was just more about feeling special in your home, because I was like, no, I don't. That's something that is thrown around as like one way that supposedly wives are abused.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know a family that runs like that.